Today on the Supercast.
Django, have you always been alone? Django, have you never loved again?
And welcome back to the Supercast. This is Steve Z, the man who put the Z in Supercast. And along with me is...
The Superfosh, the man who put the super in Supercast. And dude, how you doing, man?
Awesome.
Me too, man.
Ready to talk about this film. We've tried it a few times the past few days, but just schedules and weird stuff's happened. But finally getting around to it, so this should be pretty good.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with what we're talking about because you couldn't pay attention to that theme song or any of that stuff, we're talking about Django, and if you didn't know, the D is silent.
And that's Django Unchained to be proper.
Yes, Django Unchained. And my initial thoughts on this thing is, I remember the first time I went and watched this in the theater.
Yeah.
I went and watched it with my dad, and it was kind of a weird thing because he just out of the blue says, "Hey, you want to go see that new Quentin Tarantino movie?" That apparently he watched *Inglourious Bastards* like a few days before. He really liked it, so he was just like, "Let's go check it out." And it was I don't know why, it was just he and I think we went and watched it on New Year's.
Yeah.
Because the movie had just come out. It was a pretty good experience, but I would say that this time watching it was an even better experience. I'll tell you why during our review. So, what about you? What's your experience with this film?
Okay, so first of all, I looked up, I guess it was yesterday, and I didn't realize this movie came out in 2012. And I was surprised it was that young. I thought this movie was at least 09 to 10. You know, that's how much I guess I wasn't paying attention. But my now wife, my then girlfriend, loved this film, and she actually loves *Inglourious Bastards* like you. I think is her favorite Tarantino. So we went to the theater to see this together, and I love this movie. I'm already a big Western fan, and I just love this film. I think, and we'll go through it. There's some parts that were a little less than fun to watch and be a part of and be represented sort of by, but I really liked the story. I really liked the character of Django. I thought Jamie Foxx was excellent. I wasn't a huge Jamie Foxx fan, but after this film, I gained a lot of respect for him. And of course, Christoph Waltz is amazing, and everybody really is. But yeah, that's definitely my history with this film. And as you said, I think I love this film coming out of the theater. But I think I love this film the more I watch it. Like we've watched it a couple times on DVD, and then I watched it. I actually watched it about a month ago, just out of the blue. I think it was on Netflix or Showtime or something, and I was like, "Oh, Django!" So I watched it, and then we had talked about doing this recording, so I watched it, and it's like every time I watch this film, I gain a new respect for it and interest, and love this film. We said off air that this wasn't one of your top favorite Tarantino films, but I definitely disagree. I think this might be my favorite Tarantino film, but we'll get into it. So, but let's get into it. Go ahead, man.
Yeah. So first thing I want to start off with is I was like you. I liked the performance. That was the first time I watched it. That was the biggest thing that stood out to me. It's just the 3 or 4 main characters, their performances. But this time, what it was for me was just the feeling that you get. The word that I've heard some people describe this is it's revenge porn, and that's what I kind of feel. I feel great gratification watching Django get his revenge and kill these terrible, terrible people. I don't know if there's something wrong with me or something, but I think the fact that I feel that way shows that there's nothing wrong with me.
Right, exactly. I was about to say, no.
I think this film probably depicts slavery better than pretty much any movie ever because it doesn't beat around the bush. It puts it all on the table, and I think that in itself is worth noting because if you watch old films, they kind of just like, oh, it was bad and everything, but we don't really want to show you how bad.
This is definitely the gritty part of, I think, slavery that I think Tarantino does really well. And it starts at the beginning with the introduction of Django and the guys that he's with. And again, they're dirty, they're cold. I mean, it's such a honest interpretation, in my opinion. I wasn't there, when it was really going on. But from, what you read about and what you hear about, and you're a history teacher, you can tell me even more. I really think this is about as close to how it probably was as far as for those guys, and just terrible. And I think the performances of not only Jamie Foxx but those other guys at the beginning, and then cannot say enough, and we will talk a lot, I think, about Kerry Washington and her performance, specifically the whipping scene, and we'll get into that in a minute. But just watching that the other day, you talked about the revenge porn thing. Watching that and then seeing what he does to the Brittle brothers in response a little bit later on is just so magnificent. I mean, you want to stand up and cheer. You're just like, you're to, and I don't mean to diminish it because, again, like we said, this is based on real events, but it's like a wrestling show where you're just like, yes, they're getting what they deserved, and these guys truly do. I mean, it's just, it's magnificent. It's impressive.
Yeah, and I think that's a common thing in Tarantino films, is kind of getting just the bad people in history getting their comeuppance. It starts with Inglourious Bastards, with the Nazis getting machine gunned at the end of the film, and then you have this one, obviously, and then most recent example, I guess, would be the Manson family getting theirs in the recent one. So I guess before we get further in this, we probably should go ahead and throw out, there will be spoilers.
Definitely.
And so if you haven't seen the film, go check it out.
Yeah,
but here we go. So if you're not familiar with Django, I know I say this every time. I'm like, why are you watching it or listening to this? Because it's not a commercial for the film. This is basically us talking about it in deep discussion. So
we've talked about in past episodes about being film bros, and we're definitely not that. We don't want to appear to be that. And if you don't like this movie, or if you don't like this movie, I guess you're not listening to this. But, if for whatever reason you don't like this movie and you're still listening, that's great. We're fine with that. And, I'm 100%. But I just love this film. I just really, really, really do like this film a whole heck of a lot. And I think the main thing is the story. I mean, it is the story, obviously. If you watch a Tarantino film, the visuals are great. The music is amazing. And the actors, and again, we'll go through all the actors here in a second. But I think the thing that makes this film great, as much as any other Tarantino, is the story itself. And you said at the top about the revenge thing, and you immediately root for Django. You immediately root for Broomhilda, and you immediately root for Waltz. And that's, I think, because of how Tarantino makes you feel about these characters. Do you feel kind of the same way as far as your experience with this film?
Definitely. I think all of the characters are great. They're very well written, and that's really probably Tarantino's best attribute as a director is his writing. The dialogue is just impeccable. And yeah, I know they talk a little bit differently in Tarantino films compared to others, and that's the reason why. I think he's actually, after he finishes his 10th film, he's just going to become a novelist, I think. That's what I heard.
I heard a conversation the other day with Adam Sandler and Brad Pitt, and neither one of those guys are in this film. Brad Pitt is in the most recent movie, Once Upon a Time in the West. That is Tarantino's most recent, right?
Yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Hollywood. I am so sorry.
The West. You're thinking about westerns.
I'm telling you, man. Hey, at least I'm on the right track. But he was talking about. They were talking about the writing of Tarantino, and this is why I was going to mention that and he said, I think it was Brad Pitt said, you know how like you're in a party and somebody's thing and you want to make a witty comeback and you can't think of anything until you get into the car. He said Tarantino has you covered as far as script goes. You know, his writing is just so good, and I think there's a lot of instances with that in this movie alone.
Definitely. And the story, basically what it is Django is rescued from Schultz, who's a bounty hunter at the beginning. Christoph Waltz plays Schultz, and he's this German guy that might be a dentist, maybe not. It's hard to tell because you never see him actually do much, but he does have good teeth, and I guess that shows you he does have some dentistry background. But he deals in killing dead bodies, so that's what he's all about. And he recruits Django, and I think this is an interesting scene. I know we're not talking about scenes yet, but the scene where he's it's an uncomfortable thing for Schultz because he says, Django, I'm not big into slavery, but I need you to do this thing for me. And I know I don't want to force you to do it. What did you think about that? Just the awkwardness of that.
Well, let me back up a second. The story goes, and by story I mean my wife tells me that, and maybe you can confirm this, that Walt actually fell off his horse and broke his, I think, pelvis, and so that's why he's riding on the cart at the beginning. Like they had to basically rewrite him as a dentist, because I don't know if he was a dentist necessarily initially in the original script, but because he fell off, they were like, okay, he's got to ride a cart. Why would he be riding a cart? And they're like, oh, he's a traveling dentist. Have you heard that before?
I have not, but I have heard about him falling off the horse because Jamie Foxx is actually big into horses,
right?
And the horse that he rides in the film is actually his. It's his own horse.
Okay.
But he heard about Christoph Waltz falling off and breaking his pelvis, so he actually gives him a seatbelt saddle so he can like buckle up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting.
What I would need.
But yeah, he sits down with him and he has to basically coax him into helping him out. Yeah. And Django doesn't really take much talking to. He's like, "What? You're gonna go kill those guys? Sounds great to me." So Django goes and helps him get these Biddle brothers, and they get it.
Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on the whole Big Daddy scene, the intro, and then of course what follows?
I just like how Django gets his revenge on those guys. Shows up in that blue suit. Everybody's giving him crap for it, but he's just like, I don't care, I'm cool. And he just takes those guys out. It's messed up that one guy he's quoting scripture while he's beating somebody, and then if you notice, like when Django shoots that guy, he had like a piece of a Bible like taped to his shirt or something, and it was just an interesting thing there. But definitely, like Schultz shows up and he's just like, "What the heck, man?" That escalated quickly. He's like, "I got him." Yeah.
I love the girl because he explains, he's like, yeah, I'm Schultz's partner, and he goes, "You mean you want to dress like that?" I think that's a funny line.
Yeah.
And then of course we get to the famous scene, and I think it's brilliant on the part of Tarantino to, you could have just shown the revenge part and how crazy that was, and but the whole bag scene is hilarious. And that they argue about that. I mean, like, it makes you wonder if stuff like that happened back then. It probably did, because they were idiots back then too. But just to show how stupid those people were. I mean, yeah, they were hateful, and they were horrible people, and they get what they deserve thanks to Django and Schultz. But to argue over something as stupid as those bags over their heads, to put that scene in there, I think is kind of a brilliant move on Tarantino's part.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it does slow the pacing down a little bit, but at the same time, you don't really mind because it's an entertaining scene. It's pretty funny, and it's like an early Jonah Hill role too.
Well, I think even Tarantino kind of feels like there's a lot of heavy stuff in this film, and we're providing you with a lot of, a lot of violence. There's a lot of violence, and not just violence, but like horrible violence, and true violence in the sense of this kind of stuff happened. I mean, Tarantino doesn't sugarcoat any of it, and nor should he. I don't think. I mean, if you're gonna tell a story like this, as we said in the opening, there's been a lot of stories of slaves and stuff, and I don't think it's ever been depicted as honestly as it is in this film. From a standpoint of, it's gritty, it's dirty, it's horrible. And the fact that people use religion, because you mentioned, what's his name?
The Biddle.
Had the scripture nailed to him, literally. And it's a horrible thing. And I think to have that little scene there, I think it's kind of a nice palate cleanser to say, yeah, these people are horrible people and they deserve every bit of what they get, but they're still idiots. So yeah, let's not forget
you
that.
Can't just tell he made the Nazis look like idiots.
Exactly.
He does the same thing here. It's like shows you these people are terrible people. They're so stupid, and I like that. I think I know you shouldn't just watch movies to watch people get their comeuppance. Right. This film is one that you should do that. From there, pretty much Schultz trains up Django to be a bounty hunter, and they're going to go rescue Django's wife, Broomhilda. And just so much things to talk about, just what I just said.
I'm telling you, man, the chemistry between Schultz and Django is absolutely amazing. I mean, it's just, you cannot say, and I'm huge on duos in shows. I've done duos in plays, and, you see duos and things, and when they're great, they're just really good. And I think, as far as everything goes, I think they're my favorite part of this film as far as that goes, because they're just so good together. I mean, I just love, every time I see them two on screen, they're just so fun, and, they're not the same kind of person, they obviously, and I don't mean just like pigmentally or anything, but like even culturally and all that good stuff. And yet, I was talking to Scarlett about this film, and I said one of my favorite scenes is when Schultz is going to tell Django about Siegfried and Broomhilda, the story, the legend, and Django just listens to it like he's just like a child, like he's just an eager child. He sits down, he puts everything away, and he's just like, he just sits there and he's like, oh, you want me to tell you now? And he's like, yeah, of course. And he's asking him questions, and that is one of my absolute favorite scenes in this entire film.
Yeah, I agree totally. Their chemistry's awesome. It's just one of those deals where you have both actors performing great. Totally different ways of going about it, because Django's the more silent, cool, acting tough and all that stuff. And then Schultz he's just the talker, and he's got such a silvery tongue that he could convince some of these dumb people in this film pretty much anything, because he's just very good with his language. They think he's actually speaking foreign language half the time because he's using such big words, and like, speak English. So that's just great. And but as the time goes by, you definitely see Django start coming out of his shell a little bit. I think that has a lot to do with just the nature of like slavery. Like if you were a black person, you weren't allowed to talk unless spoken to, or you weren't allowed to like really voice your opinion about things because you could lose your tongue. Anything can happen to you. So he definitely starts getting his freedom, and I love the Siegfried scene personally. I was thinking about that just because Schultz, it adds more to his backstory, because he's just like, I'm willing to just take all my time just to help you with this quest, because I'm a German and your wife's name's Broomhilda and you're a real life Siegfried, so it's like my duty. I have to do that. So I really like that.
And he's being real, and that's the really thing about it, is there's no trick. He's not trying to undermine him. He's not trying to rob him of anything. He's literally doing his, as he says, German duty of helping a Siegfried find his Broomhilda. And so his performance as an actor, but also performance as the person, if that makes any sense, is so genuine. Like, it's just, he is a genuinely good person. And I don't know about you, but you almost question that up until that scene. Do you a little bit? Like, yeah, he saves him from being a slave and everything, but you wonder, is this just for his own, gain? Is he just wanting to help him make more money? But you hear that horrible flashback, or you see that horrible flashback of his wife, and he's talking about it, and you can just tell that Schultz is like, oh wow, I got to help this guy. So again, it's a really cool thing to see somebody just being nice, just for the sake of being nice.
Yeah, and like you're saying, it starts off as a pragmatic thing. It's just like, I need your help to find these guys. But after that whole scene, things change for him. He's going to give up whatever he can to help him out. Even like the $12,000 that he was going to pay. It's kind of crazy. Like, I looked up how much that is in today's money. That's $400,000. Wow. So he's willing to give up that much money just to help her out.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's pretty amazing. So these two guys, these gentlemen, they train for the winter. Django becomes a crack shot and all that stuff. And if that was just the whole movie, that'd be pretty cool. If it was just them going on adventures and stuff. But they have a mission. They have to go and rescue Django's wife, Broomhilda, from the evil Monsieur Candide, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. And we've been talking about great performances so far, but this one is really good. And DiCaprio himself was really torn while doing this part. It bothered him. Because, some actors can, they never break character or anything like that. They can just say whatever. But apparently, he's like, can we tone it down a little bit? This is kind of bad. I don't like this. Yeah. So first, it was like Quentin Tarantino had to come at him. He's like, hey, if you tone it down and you don't like show what this really is, then nobody's going to buy it. It's going to be just like, oh, you're fake. But he has to be authentic, he says. The other person is Sam Jackson pulls him aside during that one dinner scene. He says, hey man, it's okay. We've heard worse than this. Just talking about black people. It's like, we've heard worse than this guy saying stuff like that. So it's kind of crazy, but I think Candy is a good character, even though he's terrible.
It's horrible.
You want to tell us a little bit about Candy?
Okay, so like, I love that we're getting to these two guys because, again, horrible people. And the thing is, up until this time, it's almost felt like, and Tarantino's white, so it's kind of interesting, but it's almost felt like that the black people were the good people and the white people were the bad people. Well, it's not that way when you get to Candy's Mansion. Yes, Candy's white and he's horrible, but you would almost, and my wife has said this, you would almost argue that Steven is as bad as Candy, if not worse, because really Steven kind of trained Candy to be this, ruthless person. So it's kind of like art imitating life as far as that goes, because you talked about Samuel talking to Leonardo, the actor, about it and stuff. So, it's funny, and I love the intro of Steven because he's just so ornery, he's so, just a horrible person, but it's almost funny. And then the same with Leonardo DiCaprio, and he does that outburst about his beautiful sister, which I'm still not really sure why that was said like that. As far as, do you know?
He's got a crush on his sister. It's messed up.
That's what I thought, but I didn't want my, I didn't want it to be like that because I'm like, it's really not.
It's definitely got an incest vibe to it. But yeah, I agree with you about Steven. He's despicable because, and at the same time, he's a very complicated character because you realize
he is.
This is the best he could do, and he is betraying all of his people when he does this. Whenever he cowers down to Candy, laughs at his stupid jokes, and just does whatever he says. But he does it because this is his highest he's going to get in life, as being his right hand man. And you see that he has reached a special status with Candy because he can just tell him, just like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard, and all that stuff. He gives him some lip and everything. But Candy, he's introduced because he's into this thing called Mandingo fighting, which is apparently it's a made up thing. But there is a movie that Tarantino got the idea from, this movie called Mandingo, about a slave that fights people. And so they meet up and that scene is it's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
You see these two guys basically fighting to the death, and you just know that, I mean, it's just Candy there. He's just like, this is what I do for fun. I just watch people fight to the death.
Right. Right.
They're just his entertainment. It's crazy. And one guy kills the other guy, and he's just like, here you go, buddy. Here's your reward. Here's you a beer. You earned it. And it's just so, I don't know, callous.
Barbaric is what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And it's interesting, go back to the sister. She's supposedly in mourning, is what I was told. And I didn't even know this first couple times I watched the movie. Is she's supposed to be in mourning, but she's not really dressed like it. And she doesn't really act like it as the movie goes on. And so that with the brother and everything, that kind of answers a couple questions there too.
Yeah.
But the fighting thing is pretty rough to watch. That scene. And probably the most difficult thing is with the dogs later on. I don't know if you want to talk about that at this point, if you want to wait on that for a second.
There's a lot of harrowing scenes in this film, and that's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
And I think the worst part about all that is how Django just has to play the actor. He cannot lose it. That's why he actually has to do something that was terrible. He has to like ride his own people and just call them bad names and all sorts of stuff just because he has to pull off this act that he's this Mandingo expert and that if he really wants to save his wife, he basically has to betray himself. Which I don't know if you notice it when that scene happens. He has to put the sunglasses on just because he can't let anybody see his poker face, if you will, or he has to put on a poker face.
And that's what and that's what I love about the scene in the bar, because that's what Walt kind of tells him is you've got to create this character, you've got to create this persona that you can basically hide behind to get the job done. Because otherwise, if you get found out, that could mean the death of your wife, that could mean the death of you. I mean, it would be tough in real life, but I think even as an actor, Jamie Foxx, that would have to be difficult to try to portray anyway, because it's just such a very emotional situation. And to be put into that, I think, to have to even think about it and consider that. I mean, you and I are both married, and we hope to God never to have to fight for our wives, but to imagine have to do it in that situation, I mean, that's pretty crazy,
Yeah, and I think his performance, you definitely see all this stuff that's going on in his head.
Yep.
Like, even from the get-go, like, just the fact that he has a name, and he's got his own clothes, he's got his own horse, all that stuff. I mean, you got to think of how that's not common. That's not for slaves. That's not their life. And so you get all that going on, but then even the scene I'm talking about where he gets dirty, as they says. I'm getting dirty. And that just shows you how the lengths he's willing to go to kind of accomplish his goal and save his wife. And it's just like any Tarantino film, they nearly pull it off before the whole plan just goes haywire. But before we get to that, I guess we should talk about Broomhilda herself, her performance of Kerry Washington. So we get introduced to her, and we see that she's been in the hot box, which is torturous thing. Did you hear about what she did to make that action believable?
No, I did not.
So apparently, I mean, because like most actors would just get in there for a few minutes and then shoot the scene and that's it. But she wanted to sit in there for a long time before they start the scene, so that way her reaction was real. She wanted to experience that. Same thing you were talking about the whipping earlier. He told the guy, "You got to actually whip me. I want to see what that feels like." Just to get the believable thing. So Kerry Washington went all out for this film. What do you think about her performance?
You know what? Like I said, I think she is one of the greatest things about this film. There's a scene where I guess it's a dream sequence where Django is in this water and then she's in there and he just looks at her, and she's just so pretty, and she's just like I said, it's like a dream thing. And then you see that with the whipping and then the hot box. I mean, only other reference to that I remember is that episode of Batman the Animated Series where Bruce Wayne gets put in a hot box, and I guess it's about the same kind of thing. By the way, guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, that's one of the craziest episodes of that show.
Yeah,
I don't even know how it fits with the rest, but anyway, strange reference. Sorry, guys, I have ADD. I go all over the place, but it does connect. But going back to Kerry Washington, I mean, she's just. I mean, that gives me a lot more respect for her to hear that, because again, like you said, all she'd have to do is just go in there for a couple minutes, and then be done with it. But to actually stay in there, it kind of reminds me of a story I heard where Ryan Reynolds is on that David Letterman show on Netflix, and he apparently did this movie, I think in 2012, about the same year, where it's like he's buried, and he actually buried himself. And he said he was underground and would pass out. And he'd have to like blow into this bag and kind of thing. And again, as an actor, I've never done anything remotely like that. So I have so much respect for that. And again, to come back to Kerry, she's just... I don't know, like, they could have put any actress in there and you probably would have felt bad for the character no matter what. Because again, it's a horrible situation. She's a slave, for goodness sake. That alone's terrible. But to see what she goes through and to just hear her, I mean, it's a difficult watch. It really is. And I think she won an award for this movie, or at least she was nominated. And I would have given her the award myself, because she's just, again, one of the bright spots of a hugely bright movie for me.
Yeah, she's great. And you feel for, like, that's what I love about a lot of Tarantino films is you get invested in it. You get invested in the characters, you get invested in the plot. Even if you've seen it before and you know how it's going to go, it still sucks you in.
Nope.
So it's like you're feeling this triumphant because you think it's going to work out perfectly. Schultz has his little meeting with Brunhilde, tells her what's up, and they have dinner. It seems like everything's going well. But then Steven, that little turd, he's up to it. He knows that Django has a history with her. And he tells Candy about it. And then they have that very intense scene at the table where he pulls out the... This guy's going to shoot you in the back of the head if your hands leave the table, because there's been a lot of lies, but that's the truth. And apparently, in that scene, DiCaprio cut his hand on like a wine glass, but he kept going with the scene. Yeah, so... It's intense, and then from there you just see everything just go to crap. Once again, you think they're going to get away because he pays the money. Schultz doesn't like it, but then he gets so angry at Candy, just what this man is, how fake he is, how he pretends he's smart, and just a terrible person. And he tells I love it when he says, "Stop playing Beethoven." Yeah, because, I mean, the German in him, it comes out, and he just can't take it, so he just shoots Candy dead, and doesn't end well for him.
No, it does not.
But that's probably my favorite Christoph Waltz scene, by the way, other than anything from Inglourious Bastards, is just how he tells off Candy, and then, I don't know, what do you think?
I get from a story standpoint why it happens, but I hate that the character Schultz dies at the end. I really... hate that, because it's just, you love the character so much. I mean, Waltz just makes you just love the guy from the first scene till the end. And so I remember that was my biggest disappointment from the first viewing, is that Waltz dies, or that Schultz dies, because I just really hated that, because you just really like the guy. But again, as from a thematic standpoint, I totally get it. But aside from all the ugliness and stuff like that, was there anything that disappointed you about the film, or that you didn't like? Because I know you talked about that it may not be your favorite, and maybe a lot of that has to do with some of the subject matter, and that it's hard to, especially...
No, it's not that. I just can't say why it is not my favorite. I want to say it's just because it's just... I don't know, it's a different vibe. Right. I'm not going to say it's a bad movie or anything. Right. I mean, I've been praising it the whole time. There's actually nothing about it I would change. I think it's perfectly well it's made. It's just Tarantino has got such a high bar when it comes to his films that I just can't put this one at the top because there's so many others that I put there. So it's kind of like whenever we were ranking our Bond films, it's like pretty much from 15 on is a great film. The same thing here. If it's one of his, it's probably a great movie. Nothing really to knock it. I do want to talk about one thing before we shut the door on this, and that's the music. I love the music in this film.
Yes.
It's so many great just needle drops in it, and I know some people aren't into that so much because he rarely has like a complete score. It's mainly like a playlist, but he picks such good songs for the scenes. I like it.
I love the music. I you know me, and Scarlett says it all the time. I'm such a music junkie that if music were drugs, I'd probably be an overdose. Not to make a bad joke, but I love this. I love the use of what's his name? I've got a name.
The Jim Croce. Yeah,
Jim Croce. I love that.
It comes at a good scene in the film because Django's got a name. He's feeling good about his suit and everything. You also have my favorite is actually the Jamie Foxx rap, the 100 Coffins.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't think that would work in a Western, but
right.
At that time you're vibing with it, and that comes on. It's just like, yeah, this is bad. And it's got so many moments like that. I mean, all the action in it is kind of like very visceral. It's I don't know. You celebrate. You like watching Django have this shootout at the end, and because he basically has two. The first one, you think he's going to get away, but he doesn't. He gets captured, tortured, but then he comes back after he tricks those Australian dudes and kills them. He goes back to the plantation and just blows the whole place up. So pretty awesome. I just love how the music syncs with everything. Even though I think from what I saw that Tarantino actually made the great Ennio Morricone mad at him after this film.
Really?
Yeah, he got mad because he was just like, I don't like directors that just do what Quentin Tarantino does. He didn't think the music was placed well, but I guess they got over it because, as you know, Ennio Morricone scored The Hateful Eight, so I guess they made up. But apparently he was mad at him after this film because I guess he didn't like how he used his songs.
Probably because the film was a success. It made him a lot of money.
Yeah, maybe.
Money fixes everything, man. That's what I hear.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts for you this one?
I mean, again, it's just such an interesting adventure. I mean, it's a long film, by the way, guys. If you've never seen Django Unchained, I mean, this is not like an hour and a half film. This is a good 2-3 hour film. But the pacing, and we hadn't even talked about that. I think the pacing doesn't make it feel like just a long drawn out film. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's what I think about all his films.
Yes.
I know some people, they're slow. I mean, just because I guess some people want to see like explosions every 10 seconds in a film. But for me, I like it. I mean, like, I don't know what it is about his movies. I can put them on at midnight, and I can watch them till like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I won't fall asleep. His is like some of the only films I can actually do that with, where I'm just like, they're just talking, but I'm so enthralled by them just talking. But yeah, I love it. Great film. The pacing does not bother me whatsoever.
I mean, it does make me want to watch a lot of his other films, and perhaps we'll do that. Perhaps we'll dive back into the Tarantino vault, because there is quite a few to deal from. But I really enjoyed watching this, and I really enjoyed talking about it. I mean, I just can't say enough good stuff about this film. I think there's a lot to love. There's a lot of hard scenes, as we've, I hope, appropriately discussed, because, again, I don't want to make it sound like, this film's an easy film to watch, because it's not. There's a lot of scenes in there that, there's actually quite a couple scenes, actually, that I kind of fast forward through, just because it's so difficult to watch. And I can't imagine filming that, especially some of those actors and what they have to deal with, just because it's such a heavy situation. But I admire them. I admire what Jamie Foxx did, and all those guys, because they were just super, super fantastic. And we don't necessarily give ratings on these films. They're arbitrary. They don't matter anyway, But I definitely would give this probably 9 out of 10, something like that, if I were you know, being held to gunpoint to do so. But really enjoyed it. Really loved talking about it. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love this film. And the one that we're doing next is one I'm really excited about talking about as well. It came out a few years ago. It's a relatively new film. I wanted to go watch it in the theater, but I didn't ever get to. But I watched it and loved it. In fact, it's a movie that it just puts you through so many different things because you're laughing a lot. You might actually cry a few times, and you're also
much like this film we just talked about.
Yeah, and you're going to get pumped up at certain points. And the film I'm talking about is Taika Waititi's The Adventures of Jojo Rabbit. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's kind of crazy when you just throw out that name, and it gets even crazier whenever you explain what the film is. It's about a little boy whose imaginary friend is Hitler. And he's a member of the Hitler Youth, but over time we see a lot of changes in that character because I don't want to spoil it yet. But if you want to watch that before we talk about it next time, you probably should because there will probably be some spoilers in there.
It is streaming, so
it is. So it's a great film. We're going to talk about it, and just in time because Taika Waititi is about to release a new film. It's the new Thor film coming out in the next few weeks. So we're going to talk about this one.
Yeah. So we normally do this at the beginning, but I'll go ahead and do this at the closing because I think we got to do this. We do have social media, so if you go on Facebook, we do have a Facebook group, SuperCast, that's with the Z, like my friend here. And we do have Twitter, and we do put all our episodes on Spotify. So check those out, and really do appreciate everybody's support. I got a lot of support over the last couple days, and I really do appreciate that. We both do, and have a lot of fun talking about this. And looking forward to next episode. Talking about Jojo Rabbit, but hey man, this has been a lot of fun talking about Django, and we didn't talk about the original Django's cameo in this, man. That's pretty cool too.
Yeah,
by the way,
that was a good scene. But yeah, like he said, stay tuned to the social media because there's going to be a lot of things happening this summer. And I say that because I'm about to have a lot of time on my hands.
He is.
So I'm going to commit a lot of time and energy to this show. So stay tuned to that. And
I am actually in the process of moving, and when I do that, I'm actually going to be debuting a wrestling show with a friend of mine. So look out for Title Belt. So if you're a wrestling fan, old, new, whatever, and I think Steve's working on some shows, like he said. So yeah, we're expanding, guys, and so be a part of it. Love for you guys too. But this is our home. This is what we love. We love this show. We're never going to abandon this, at least I hope. Love the SuperCast, so stay tuned for that. And until next time, I am the Super Coach. He is Steve Z, and we'll see you guys all next time on the SuperCast.